Hello and welcome back to my VBA and Excel training channel. Today's video is going to be fun, it's going to be easy, and I guarantee you it's going to save you a lot of time in the future. What we're going to be doing is merging multiple workbooks or Excel files into a single file or worksheet. So pay close attention and we're going to walk through the code together. And this is going to be applicable to certainly beginners, intermediates, and maybe even some advanced users out there. So let's get started. You'll see here we have some headers that consist of city, state, month, and year. And then we have one row of data. And what we're looking to do in this case is merge several files with the same data elements. So book 1's open. Book 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all elements or files that we're going to want to merge. You can see they have the same headers as I flip through here, but different data. So there's book 4, 3, 2, and 5. You can see the data changes throughout. So here in book 1, what we're going to do is we're going to create a button. And not that button. I'm going to create a button off of the forms. They look kind of similar but have different controls. So in this case, that button's going to be assigned a copy workbooks macro that I've already created. And we can edit the text and we can say merge files. So we'll just leave that there for the moment. Now if you hit Alt F11 on your keyboard, that'll take you to VBA. And here's the copy workbooks macro that I assigned to that button. I've already typed up the code and just for the sake of time, and then we're going to walk through that here and hopefully this will make sense. So we have a variable q equal to 1, and q, we'll talk about that here in just a minute. Workbooks book 1 is going to be set to active. So book 1, switching back real quick, is what we'll consider our main or our home page. So in VBA it's going to activate that, and that's just to kind of get it started. And then we're going to jump into a for next statement. So that starts here, ends down here. In the for statement, we're going to be looking at each workbook in the multitude of workbooks that we have open. So right now we have an additional 4 workbooks open that we're going to merge into this one, and certainly you can go up into 100, couple hundred files if they're all similar headers, similar files with similar headers. And here we're going to be jumping into an if-then statement. So if the workbook name is not equal to our main Excel page or book 1, then it's going to proceed. So it's going to activate that workbook. So let's just say in this case it's looking at book, we'll just call it book 5. So if book 5 is not equal to book 1, which obviously it's not, then it's going to proceed. Then it says activate book 5. And at that point we're going to set another variable, which is x equal to 2, and that will carry us forward to a do loop, and we're going to essentially increment x until it gets to a certain point. So it says do until range a1 dot offset x comma 0 is equal to blank. Okay, so what does that mean? So again, assuming we're on book 5, we'll go to book 5. Here's cell A1, and on the code it was saying x comma 0. So all it's doing is x increments by 1, and column is equal to 0. So we're in the correct column. That's just going to scroll down through the rows until x is equal to blank. So it'll stop essentially here on A5. At that point, we now have x essentially as a a point at the end of the data where we can now understand how much data is on that sheet, because it may be 2 rows, it may be 200 rows. So the loop is done on that particular sheet, and here we're going to select the range within that sheet. So we're starting at A2, and then we're going to H and whatever the X value is, and we're going to select that. So going back to book 5, starting at A2 until X is equal to row 4 in this case, and I said column H. So it's essentially going to select this right here and copy it. Certainly we don't need to go that far. We only have to go over to D, but going over to H is just how I have it set up. It also provides a little bit of a buffer in case maybe one of the files or your main page have additional columns that you need to account for. So we're just going to leave it at that. At that point, once it's selected that information, then it will copy it. And after it's been copied, it's going to activate book 1. So it's going from book 5 to book 1 at this point. It's just flipping back to our main page, our main spreadsheet. And then it's going to kick off another do loop. And here it's going to look at range data.offset Q, comma 0. And remember, Q back up here we set equal to 1. So that's saying row 1, column 0. And Q is going to increase by 1 until this loop is finished. So looking at the range of data, I have that set equal to A1, and you can see in this name box that that is the named range of data. So what is it trying to do here? Q, as it increases by 1, it's trying to understand and count the number of rows essentially that are already occupied within our main spreadsheet. Because as files are merged, you're going to increase your data and your information in here based on whatever's in those files. So you, kind of to my point earlier, you may be increasing the data by 5 rows or 10 rows, or who knows. So Q is going to look at the data and count. So in this case, we only have 1 row. That's fine. Q is going to essentially be equivalent to the 3rd row. So once Q is found, then it'll proceed to basically pasting the information from, in this case, book 5 as part of our example. Here, application dot copy or cut copy mode is equal to false. That's just to provide a little bit of efficiency and prevent the screen from blinking during this process. It's rather optional. You don't have to do that. And I've also included code that will close the workbook that you've copied the information from, essentially to close out that procedure and you don't copy the information twice. So in this case, the workbook.name we've stated is book 5 thus far. Book 5 I would expect to close. Our if-then statement comes to an end or a close, and then it says next workbook. So down here at the bottom we have book 5. We assume that closes. Next workbook in line would be book 2. And so that's just essentially a cycle. As it looks at each workbook, it's going to go through each workbook and copy the information, paste, go to the next workbook, copy the information, paste, and eventually we'll have a full list here that includes the data from all of those 4 files that we opened. So book 2 through 5. So that's the gist of it. So for this to work the way that it's programmed right now, you do want to have all the files open at the bottom. We can expand upon this macro, which is the cool part, and add additional code. We're not going to do that right now, but we could add additional code that goes and finds those files somewhere on our computer, opens them up for us, and then merges them all with the click of the same button. Very cool. But we're not going to get to that today. So I think we're ready to go ahead and click on the button, and I'm going to go ahead and pause for a second though, just to say if any of you have any questions about what I've explained thus far, if that doesn't make sense, go ahead and comment down below and I'll be sure to respond to your questions. Alright, so at this point I'm going to click on the merge files, and you can see rather quickly it has merged data from all those files, and down at the bottom we no longer have books 2 through 5 because the data has been copied, the workbook's been closed, and we have our end result. So that's pretty much it. I mean, it's rather simple. You may need to watch the video a couple, 3 times to fully understand it, and that's okay. But ultimately, this is going to be a pretty easy thing to do and very applicable to many scenarios where you have multiple workbooks that need to be merged that have, you know, relatively similar or exact data in them. And it's just with the quick click of a button, and make sure you have the files open and you should be good to go. So give the video a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, and again, if you have any questions, put those in the comments down below and I'll try and take a look at those. Thanks for watching the video, and I will see you next time.